So before you audition, I'm sure you do, and I'm excited to hear this. Before you audition or when you're on set, do you have any rituals or habits or pro tips you always do?
No.
Really?
I don't think so. Aside from like rehearsing.
Right.
I don't think that's a habit or a ritual, but.
Well, is there a certain way you rehearse or anything?
I mean, it depends on like, okay, for auditions, because I'm a teacher and a coach, I believe in the power of that a lot. So I don't ever go in for anything that I haven't worked on out loud with another person, whether it's like another colleague whose opinion I really trust and value, or my boyfriend's an actor and he's amazing. So I love his feedback. But I always run everything. And that's kind of how I learn it. And because I'm a theater girl and I grew up in like the collaborative like rehearsal process, I don't know how to memorize. Like if you gave me something where like memorize this in 2 seconds, like I would have no idea how to do it aside from working it through like as if I was in a rehearsal process. Right. And then I'll know it because I'm good at like memorizing story, but memorizing, not good at. So I always run everything. Even if I just have like a couple hours lead time, the second I get it, I'm like, all right, who's available? And I start texting and I lock in a session.
Oh, nice.
And then I do whatever prep I do before that, but then I go in and I'm like ready to work it.
Yeah.
And then I'm usually ready to go after that. Other than that, like in terms of when I'm on set or when I'm working.
What about in the room per se?
A ritual in the room?
Like, do you have any habits when you get into the room or the waiting room or anything like, or on the drive over?
On the drive over, sometimes, depending on what it is, if I'm feeling like a little methody because I'm in a bad mood and need to be super happy or super happy and need to be miserable. That's a very like base way of explaining acting, right? That's terrible. Sometimes music helps, like I'll listen to certain things. I went through a phase when, cause again, musical theater nerd, I was obsessed with the musical Next to Normal.
Okay.
And, I had like a very masochistic habit with this musical because there's I have like a personal connection to the subject matter and it is very triggering for me and makes me like cry like drop of a hat.
What's the subject? I don't know. I'm not aware of it.
The show is about mental illness, but it's about this woman who after her child dies when they're like 1.5 years old, it triggers a bipolar disorder from her.
Okay.
And so it's a battle with like medication and how she deals with her mental illness.
Yeah.
But there's a song like towards the end of the second act where the dad who has been, and like her son is like a teenage version and is sort of like living throughout the show, but no one can see him because it's in her head.
Oh,
so at the end of the show, there's this moment where like all shit is like, everything is like gone to hell and the dad finally sees the son.
Oh.
And they have this like musical moment and the music's really good and very emotional and really cool. And that moment, for whatever reason, every time it happens, it just like gets me emotionally. I've had some death in my family and have had some losses. And so that is just like a very direct trigger for me. And so I went through like a phase where anytime I had to cry for an audition, I would just like listen to that shit on loop.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I felt like I was like, this is awful. And I felt like I was like degrading the memory of like my nephew, but like it was terrible, but it worked. And so I thought, I guess I have to keep using that. And then I was like, this is where acting can be like a little weird, that we like put ourselves into these situations and make ourselves feel this for like a moment. And then you leave and you're like, I'm done. I'm fine. So I did that for a while sometimes. Now, honestly, I don't know. I try to make auditioning as like the least event possible.
Oh, smart.
Is that grammatically correct what I just said? I'm not sure.
I'm the wrong guy.
But I just try to make it a non-event for myself.
That's
so
smart.
I do all the work. I get there. I try not to be on my phone in the waiting room too much. I try not to like rehash the scene in my head a million times because if I didn't know it before I walked in, I'm not going to know it sitting there.
Yeah, see, I have that problem even with class. I know it, and then I rehash it beforehand, and it makes no sense.
Well, it's like, no,
it's
not going to change. It's not going to change anything. Because then you leave the audition and then you do it in your car and you're like, oh, I was brilliant in my car just now. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because they say there's 3 auditions, right? There's the one you do in your car on the way there, the one you do in the room, and then the third one you do when you leave.
Yep.
And like, who knows which one's best? You hope it's the one in the room, but like it might not be.
How do you make the auditions not an event though? Because we're taught, we actors are taught that an audition is a win. So how is that not like an event? How do you talk yourself out of that, or how do you have that mindset going in?
I think preparation is key. Get excited and get prepared. And then I tend to audition for a lot of roles where I see the same people over and over. So it ends up being kind of like a social hour.
Sure.
So like I'll go in the waiting room if I see someone I know. I just have like a personal connective moment there that gets me out of my head.
Sure.
And so I like actually talk to someone. I'm not someone who sits there isolated with my earbuds in, like, you know, in character.
Yeah.
I just like kind of live in it. And then when I get in the room, I just like remember where I'm at and like take my first moment and go. And then when I leave, I'm kind of a busy person. I have a lot of my hands in a lot of things. So I always have somewhere to be after an audition. So that helps me move on.
That's good.
Yeah. I started throwing away sides after I leave, which I've heard some
like
people
ceremoniously.
do. Like I just
crumple it up and
sometimes, or
Michael
like
Jordan
I just like put it away, and I don't like. I used to hoard them in a folder.
Oh.
Because I was like, in case I get the producer session or the callback, like I got to keep
that's
it.
not good.
And now I just don't do that anymore. Anything you can do to kind of like trick your mind into not caring, because like I care an immense amount,
right?
You know, but I want to just like trick myself into not caring so that it's not ruling my life. And there are moments when this works wonderfully, and moments where like I'm terrible at it, and I'm just like praying for the phone to call,
right?
Phone to ring. Man, my grammar is all over the place today. I'm so tired.
You're all right.